Well, this was an absolute rough one to watch, by all means. We welcome you in post-flight here on Philly Voice. The Philadelphia Eagles fall hard to the Dallas Cowboys. I can't even begin to express my frustrations. We'll get to the three big takeaways, but really, what happened? That's the big question here. What happened to this football team that was thoroughly prepared to go in week one with a game plan and to stick to that game plan? And to have on both sides of the football the level of execution that reflected a team taking the necessary time to prepare for a football game. What the hell happened? Now, what do we see? A team for 2 straight weeks that has started games disheveled and lost and unprepared. It's really disappointing to see some team like this come out with all these new pieces, fresh components, looking like they can dominate a team the way in which they did against the Atlanta Falcons, and then it just disappears. We are so far removed, you realize that, right, from Atlanta. That's gone. That's rear view. And what's disappointing right now is that there hasn't been a time or a place to build off of that success and momentum. I'll spare you the whole nonsense about the T-shirt stuff, although that's real. That impacted the Dallas. The Cowboys were well aware of that T-shirt. And they had extra momentum, which made no sense to give it to him. 0 sense to give it to him. But so far, so good for Nick Sirianni because he gets to fire up the fans here. Just put that on the back burner for just 1 second. This team looked lost. This team looked disheveled. This team looked ill-prepared. They honestly looked like they've prepared for the Atlanta Falcons and then thought, we'll just take it as it goes. You know, it's like they're sitting there trying to memorize a song in front of a group of people that they'll have to perform later that night. And they think, you know, we just get the first couple of words out there. Everybody else is going to come in and we can fake it. You can't fake it like this in the NFL. You can't. Your offense looks awful. The offense looked so discombobulated, disjointed. Jalen Hurts holding the ball too long on an RPO where Landon Dickerson gets caught for an illegal man downfield. Same play, Hurts connects on a beautiful throw. That's the microcosm for this game Monday night in Dallas. It was an absolute gut-wrenching loss, disgraceful of an effort. They got gashed on the ground. Gashed. Again, what have they built on? What is this Philadelphia Eagles team actually built on from Atlanta? This is what the season's about. I'm not calling for Joe Flacco. I'm not calling for Gardner Minshew. I'm not calling for Nick Foles. Hell, I'm not even calling for Carson Wentz to come back. As ridiculous as that is, the guy can't even stand upright. But if it's about growing pains, and if it's about growth, and if this is about moving in the right direction and having somewhat of an upward trajectory, then what the hell is the coaching staff, specifically on offense, doing to help that? How in the world can you neglect the run the way in which Nick Sirianni and that offense how? How can you do that? The game plan, the execution, there was no commitment at all to the run. Miles Sanders is being flat out neglected. This is a problem right now. This is a major problem right now for this offense that they don't know who they are. They don't know what they are. And only thing that's saving them is they actually have some talent. There is some young talent, some fast, speedy talent, and Jalen Hurts at times can make some plays, but wildly inaccurate, underthrowing guys. Not a good night at all for Jalen Hurts. The offensive line is in shambles right now. Isaac Seumalo is hurt. This is not a good sign right now for a football team that was hoping the one thing that could keep them in contention in a bad division, their offensive line, not the case right now. 3 starters down. We don't know how long Jordan Mailata is going to be out for. Hopefully back against Kansas City. Seumalo, a little longer. Brooks, a lot longer. This is a problem. Jalen Hurts looked so far removed from Atlanta. The offense looked so far removed from Atlanta. Devontae Smith, so far removed. Everybody, it looks like a bad football team. The last 2 weeks looked like a bad football team. Yeah, time to grow, time to improve. But you know what? We need to see it out there. And my goodness, the coach needs to allow these guys to grow. The coach needs to have a game plan that's somewhat balanced in the sense of helping your guys out there, helping the passing game out there. And look, Jalen Hurts didn't do himself many favors at all. The one that I would say is not so much on Hurts would be that Goddard drop. And then the ensuing play, of course, was Devontae Smith falling down, in which Hurts didn't even see Devontae fall down. Nightmare. For anybody who's looking at this thing as far as a growing process, anything moving in the right direction, we have seen progress utterly stop. It has been halted since Atlanta, and that's a problem. All right, still making sense of whatever the hell that was from the Philadelphia Eagles, as our own Jimmy Kempski is joining us from Dallas, and it's always a treat when we get to chat with Jimmy, specifically after a game that needs a lot of breakdown. And, you know, I'm sure there's been a lot of talk in the box to just you on social and everywhere in between just about how bad, how ugly this game was. Was there any good? Was there anything we can start on a positive note outside of the fact that the clock eventually hit 0 and they were able to get out of there?
So, I mean, just on the initial watch, it looked like Javon Hargrave had a good game, and it looks like the punter is okay. And other than that, that's about all I got.
It's amazing. What, you know, as good as Hargraves looked, it's an interesting place to start just on the line itself. What happened? What was the biggest difference, you think, from the first 2 weeks where they were able to establish a presence on that defensive line, countering the run, to just absolutely being gashed Monday night?
Yeah, well, this is the best rushing attack that they faced so far. Atlanta, didn't have much, and San Francisco had, either they had a lot of injuries to their running backs. And, Zeke Elliott isn't what he was a few years ago, but he and Tony Pollard are good running back tandem. And you lose a guy like Brandon Graham, and I think this is one of those games where you really kind of appreciate what he does in the run game. Like, he doesn't have any seasons where he has double-digit sacks, but he's just such a great all-around defensive end. And, he sort of has a history of playing really well in these Dallas games. Dallas being a team, at least previously, I don't know if they really fit this mold now, but previously they really like to run the ball a lot, and they did Monday night, and he's always shown up in those games. I mean, Dallas just kept getting, really short second and third downs because they were really able to effectively run the ball on first down, get 6 yards, 7 yards, 8 yards. And then those conversions become, much easier, and they were able to just kind of march down the field on the strength of their run game. So, yeah, I think the loss of Brandon Graham for the season really showed up in this game in particular.
A lot of penalties all around. What do you attribute that to? Brutal.
Yeah. So, first, last night I was looking up what the record is for the most number of penalties in a season. And I believe it was the Raiders in 2011. And they had, I think it was like 162 or something like that. Well, the Eagles have 35 through 3 games. And they're on pace for 198. So they're on pace
oh my goodness.
to absolutely shatter, the record for the most penalties in one season. I don't know what you attribute it to. Some of them are pre-snap penalties, which are basically just unforced errors. And Nick Sirianni talked about, the need to eliminate those going forward. But clearly it's been a big problem. They've had big plays wiped off the board. I would even go as far as like they have like a legal man downfield penalty, and I think those are kind of scheme and just execution related. If you have like a holding call, those are just going to happen throughout the course of a game, but they just have so many penalties and they're wiping big plays off the board. And they really have been killers throughout these first 3 games.
So on offense, what's more concerning, the way in which Jalen Hurts played or the way in which Sirianni called the game, specifically just neglecting the running backs?
It's crazy to me that Miles Sanders only got 2 carries in that game. Like, you're looking at a Cowboys defense that had like a half dozen defensive linemen out, like
Yep.
6 guys out in this game. And they're moving Michael Parsons from linebacker to defensive end. Randy Gregory started. Normally, he's just a situational pass rusher only. He's out there on rundowns. Randy Gregory is like 240 pounds. Michael Parsons is like 245 pounds. They have defensive tackle in there that's 280 pounds. So this was not only like a severely injury depleted defensive line, but it was also a super light defensive line. And the Eagles just didn't take advantage of that at all. They didn't even try to. Like, it's just crazy to me that the run game wasn't a heavy piece of their run game, and it was actually the total opposite. It was like they didn't run it at all. It's just absolutely wild to me that they didn't run the ball in this game. And I understand like the game got away from them a little bit. Like they got down early, and when that happens, you tend to sort of get away from the run. But Nick Sirianni was asked about what his game plan was in this game, and he seemed to indicate that they basically were happy to be in a shootout with this Dallas team, which makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
Like Dallas obviously has a very good offense, and they understood that they were probably going to score a lot of points, and I can't fathom what the logic would be in, okay, well, they're really good at this kind of game, let's engage in that kind of game with them. Like, it's just wild to me, the game plan that they had. And then obviously Jalen Hurts didn't have a good game. I think all of the concerns about what his game is showed up on Monday night. The inaccuracy was the big one, of course, and then just other things like relying on his legs too much, escaping the pocket before kind of going through all his reads. I think there was some of that mixed in, and then also just holding on to the ball for an eternity. Those 3 things are sort of like the 3 concerns that I had about his game heading into the season, and they all showed up big time, in my opinion, in this game.
Yeah, and I wonder what's the most correctable, that you look at the error or just issue that Jalen had Monday night in Dallas. What's the most correctable issue that you think can be worked on even as soon as next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think accuracy over time can be corrected, but that's not something that you just fix overnight. So that's going to be a long-term issue, in my opinion. He completed like 70% of his passes or whatever it was during that week 1 win against the Falcons, but they really simplified that game plan. They threw a lot of screens. They threw a lot of easy passes in that game. We saw him, be inaccurate week 2 against the 49ers. We saw him be very inaccurate in this Monday night game against Dallas. They can work on him getting the ball out a little quicker. That might be something that's a little more correctable from week to week. But that inaccuracy is in my opinion, a long-term issue.
Anything on the receivers? Just a question about the Chiefs, but before that, anything on the receivers and tight ends as well? I know it was a tough game to really gauge because of how one-sided it is and how much Jalen struggled for sure. But just across the board, if it's Rager, frustration, if it's Watkins, who may be trending upwards, to Devontae Smith and the tight ends.
Yeah, I don't know why Quez Watkins is getting fewer snaps than Jalen Rager. I think he's clearly a better receiver. So that's the first point. And then, I mean, they're all young, so it's going to take some time for those guys to sort of get their sea legs in the NFL. You'd like to see them make more plays. Quez Watkins was really the only guy that made a big play in that game. I thought heading into this matchup, like the tight ends could do some damage against their defense because as I mentioned, they had to move Michael Parsons from linebacker to defensive end. And then also they're missing Keanu Neal, a starter for them on the defensive side of the ball. And they're starting Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, who, they were like a very good linebacker duo, a few years ago. But those 2 guys they're like not really a good linebacker duo anymore, particularly in coverage. And I thought that was an opportunity to exploit those guys with Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. And both those guys did do some stuff, but I don't think that they were involved in the game plan as much as they should have been.
All right, Jimmy, we know all about the team that's coming. We all about the coach as well.
Yes.
How do the Philadelphia Eagles? And look, they're 1-2. They've lost 2 straight, so this is not the same team that was in the Super Bowl yet, and they could easily turn into that. All they need is maybe a win to turn things around, which could happen on Sunday. So I'll put it this way. How do the Eagles beat the Chiefs on Sunday?
I mean, they hope that like Patrick Mahomes, turns his ankle or something in the parking lot on the way into the game.
That's the only hope.
That'd be helpful. But I mean, you look at this Chiefs team. You look at the AFC West, and the Broncos are 3-0. The Raiders are 3-0. The Chargers are 2-1, and they have a head-to-head win now over the Chiefs from Week 3. The Chiefs are 1-2, and they're going to be coming into Philadelphia desperate for a win. Like, this is not a situation where they're going to be coming in here and they could overlook the Eagles or anything like that. The Eagles are going to get everything that they have, and that's not good for the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles' schedule really kind of gets difficult going forward because after the Buccaneers, you get. They're on the road against the Panthers, who are 3-0. You got
tough defense, yeah.
You got the
Raiders,
Buccaneers
right?
Thereafter at home, and then I believe the Raiders on the road thereafter. So, and the Raiders
even Detroit in Detroit may not be easy at this point.
Yeah, they look a little better maybe than we were. I mean, they're still 0-3. They're not a very good team, but yeah, I mean, their schedule coming up is brutal, and there's a good chance that like they're looking at like they're staring like 1-5, like right in the face.
Yeah.
But this Chiefs team, that I mean, they're going to come in and that they desperately need this win. And to answer your question, I don't know how you beat them. I got to take a look at sort of their first 3 games so far this season. Looks like Patrick Mahomes hasn't been like the MVP caliber player that we know him to be, but at some point he's going to turn that around and be that guy. And the Eagles just have to wait and hope. I think that he doesn't become that guy against them Week 4.
All right, last one real quick because it was trending. Every single name that played quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles was trending last night when Jalen was struggling, from Ron Jaworski all the way through Joe Flacco and Gardner Minshew. Is there a threshold, you think, this season in which Jalen Hurts could be pulled or at least benched?
I don't think we're anywhere near there yet because, I mean, what's your alternative? I mean, your alternative is Joe Flacco for right now as your number 2. Gardner Minshew, I believe, will eventually overtake him as the number 2 quarterback, but it doesn't really serve, your long-term purposes. I think, you have to give Jalen Hurts a legitimate chance to show, whether or not he can be sort of the answer long-term for this team. And I don't think you just give up on him, especially he played, pretty well Week 1. I don't think you give up on him after, or anything close to after 3 games. If we get into like Week 7, 8, 9, and he's just had a string of really bad performances, and that he's just not the guy, then yeah, maybe at some point you pull him for like a Gardner Minshew, for example. But I don't think we're really anywhere close to there yet. And I don't think there's some kind of like magic. I don't think there's like any magic in the air if you all of a sudden you pull Jalen Hurts. It's not like Joe Flacco or Gardner Minshew are going to turn this into a Super Bowl contending team. So I think for the long-term perspective, you just have to keep Jalen Hurts in there and see how he responds to this adversity too. Like he's had these 2 bad games, and you want to see like if he can turn it around and his mentality. I'll give him credit. Like he put this loss on him in the press conference after the game. And you can't say that for the quarterback that was here that got traded to Indianapolis. Like he never did. He never put games on himself. So good to see Jalen Hurts have at least some accountability.
Thanks, Jimmy. 3 big takeaways, and they are not good. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. He just wasn't good. He just didn't have that command. He didn't have that sense of confidence. And we talked in the open about all the other things around him. Nick Sirianni not doing him any favors. The running game just non-existent. The defense being atrocious, which we'll get to in a second here. But Jalen Hurts, the leader, was absent. Jalen Hurts, Mr. Confidence, Mr. Swagger, Mr. Rents Due, wasn't there. He was absent. That part of Jalen Hurts not being there in Dallas was the frustrating takeaway. His arm also on the field was the other issue that I had. Underthrowing, just not connecting. At times it looked a little noodleish. Other times he was able to make some plays. He was able to get out and make some plays and make some beautiful throws. That throw that was negated by Dickerson going downfield was perfect. He has it in him. He can make some throws. He can make some plays, but he also has some inconsistency in him. Some noodle in him, and that's a concern. And we've seen it now develop over the past 2 games. So the biggest takeaway, number one, is that Jalen Hurts, no confidence. Jalen Hurts, no swag. Jalen Hurts came up late Monday night in Dallas when rent was due. And that's a problem because we want to see him grow. We want to see him be able to take what went wrong in against the game in San Francisco, and apply that moving forward. We want to see that. And instead, we saw someone who looked lost more often than in control. Truly lost more often than he was in command. To be able to bounce back from a mistake. Dak Prescott, head down, looked dejected like the game was over after that early 4th and goal was called no touchdown. And yet the body language, the energy, it didn't waver. Dak had himself one hell of a night. That's missing with Jalen Hurts, and that's disappointing when you look at the biggest takeaway. Number two, I don't know what happened to the run defense, but it was more non-existent than Jalen Hurts' swagger. This was the embarrassing part of the night. You're a young offense. You're a new offense. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to look off. You're going to look disheveled. I get that. I don't like it. I don't want to see it. I want to see growth, but I get that. When you are a defense full of veterans and you have established for 2 straight weeks that it's going to be really difficult to push you around up front, and then you get pushed around up front by a Dallas Cowboys offensive line starting, just look at what, Lyle Collins is out. Not good, not great of a scenario there. Zach Martin aside, they were getting blown back 4 or 5 yards off the ball. It got to a point where the broadcast was saying, and rightfully so, accurately so, Cowboys were averaging over 7 yards a carry, and it didn't matter who it was. Ezekiel Elliott, it didn't matter. It did not matter by any means, whatever the case was. Ridiculous. Thoroughly, utterly ridiculous. That's a major problem. And you can't look at this and think that it's ever going to go away, right? Can't look at this and think that it's ever going to be a major problem here that just magically fixes itself. I think when you look at this overall, the run defense should be a constant. The run defense should be something that you count on. That was a brutal effort. Awful effort. One in which they should definitely apologize for as far as how bad they were gashed on the ground. And finally, Nick Sirianni. This defense that he was going up against was banged up left and right. And while we're disappointed with Jalen Hurts, and we're disappointed with how he threw the ball more often, way more often than not, what the hell happened to this offensive game plan? How are you not taking advantage of an already suspect, not as bad as last year? They did improve from last year, but they were down multiple guys on multiple levels of their defense. How are you not devising a game plan to take advantage of that? Glaring weakness exposed by Nick Sirianni, the Dallas Cowboys on Nick Sirianni for him not taking advantage of that. Glaring weakness exposed. And that's disappointing. Can it get better? Sure, but it has to get better. I'm not writing it off and saying that he can't learn from this, but this is now 2 straight weeks where we're talking about learning experiences and applying it. You get ahead of yourself, you get cute, you move away from the run game. And what the hell is this? A couple of touches here or there from Miles Sanders? That's inexcusable. I'm sorry, but you cannot look at this game and think that it's all about growing pains and it's all about just heading in the right direction. Because first off, there's no growing, it's just pain. And they're not heading in any direction, at least positive. So Jalen Hurts may be able to do something and may be able to grow from this. And yeah, that's fine. But that run defense is full of vets and they got blown back off the ball. And that final takeaway is Nick Sirianni. And now he's had 2 straight weeks of learning opportunities and he has refused to apply that. 3 big takeaways on post-flight Philly Voice. All right, let's take a breath. We'll take a break. We'll regroup next week following the Chiefs and Eagles game. We'll have another edition of Post Flight right here on Philly Voice Sports. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Shander Show, and we'll talk all about this game throughout the week. We'll turn the page, I'm sure, at one point, but we'll do that right now, as we always do, before we get out of here. It's not going to be easy. Next couple of weeks are difficult. We knew that they were going to be difficult. The Kansas City Chiefs are vulnerable, and I think it's worth looking at their defense, giving up a lot of points each and every week. They're hovering around that 30-plus point, and that's definitely attackable. Only thing is that we need to see this Philadelphia Eagles take advantage of opportunity. If they look as poor and just as disjointed as they did Monday night against Dallas, it's all for naught. It doesn't matter. You actually have an attackable matchup on offense for the first time since Atlanta. You have a team right now on defense that you can penetrate, that you can, on multiple levels, take advantage of, because everybody else has. And you have speed, and you have guys who can get into open space, and you have guys who can cause defenders to miss tackles one-on-ones. It would be nice if you got Miles Sanders involved in the running game. I think we'd all be happy with that. But make no mistake, this is not a blowout by any means. This is not Andy Reid coming back to town, putting a smack on his old team. This is a winnable game if and only if the offense shows signs of growth. If the offense is actually able to put together a couple of mistakes over the last 2 weeks and say, all right, this is how we fix it. It's a matchup league week to week. And the Chiefs defense presents some interesting opportunities that they really haven't gotten since week 1 against Atlanta. Some matchups that they can take advantage of that they really haven't had since week 1 in Atlanta. The problem is that the Kansas City Chiefs right now, not doing too well. Kansas City Chiefs right now, overall in the NFL, are one of the bottom teams. Now, we know that not to be something that's going to hold by any means, but coming into this game right now, Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles at 1-2, losers of 2 straight, are they really going to lose 3 straight? That's a difficult task right now for the Philadelphia Eagles to hold off that Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see you next week. Thanks for riding. I'm Eytan Shander. This is Post Flight on Philly Voice Sports.